Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So, boy, I tell you, our show has just lit a fire around town. I mean, I'm not going to say like I'm surprised by this, but Trevor Maddich versus the people. Did you hear today? Really talk about embrace debate. Did you hear Trevor on the midday show today?
Most of it, yeah.
Trevor and D-Mace, you know, the one thing is between the two of them, they each talked for about 7 minutes at a time. So it was almost like, you know, it was like golf, you know? I mean, I was expecting a more debatey and less long explanations. Regardless, everybody is entitled to an opinion. I think we all know that. But I'm going to have to slam the fanboy society out there that has decided that after one opinion that they don't like, not an opinion that they know is wrong, not an opinion that they could judge something, that they could form based on something they saw, just simply an opinion that they didn't like, they've decided that Trevor Maddich's opinion doesn't count. And when you do that, you tell me more about you than you tell me about Trevor. We talk about the difference between affirmation and information all the time. Some people just want to hear good things about the team. Go, team, go. And the second they hear something that they don't like, something that isn't good, they go all in to rush to the defense of the news that they don't want to hear. Guys, that's embarrassing if that's you. Trevor Maddich is a football expert. Let me underline that word again, expert. He was a first-round draft choice in the NFL. He played 12 years, started at every position on the offensive line, and was a long snapper. He, at one point, was a CBS game analyst, and for the last 20 years has been one of ESPN's top college football experts. You cannot be any more credentialed than he is. So this morning, Austin Stanley, a buddy of mine over at A to Z Sports, texted me and was like, hey, we're going to have to come after this Trevor Maddich take. I said, okay. I mean, hey, people rag on opinions all the time. And I've always said, if you're somebody that can't handle somebody getting on your opinion, then don't have an opinion. And trust me, it's not like hearing somebody rip an opinion that wasn't mine is going to make me any mad. But Ian, I got to tell you, I had to tune in when I heard that, hey, we're going to rip Trevor. It's like,
sure.
That's almost like sending a text to me saying, Jared, not that this is why he sent me the text, but it's almost like sending me a text saying, Jared, tune in. And I did. And it actually wasn't Austin Stanley who I looked at and I said, you've got to be kidding me. It was his cohort on this A to Z Sports show, Jack Gentry, who I got to take issue. So what led to all of this, we all know last week that Trevor went out to Titans mandatory minicamp and thought Treylon Burks mentally was dogging it. And I know what he was talking about because I was standing right next to him. I watched the whole thing. So then, it becomes a big deal because Trevor said it on this show, and this show is the number one show in Afternoon Drive, number one sports show in town. And so, of course, it becomes a big deal. D-Mace was against it. The fans were against it, so on and so forth. And yesterday, Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach, meeting with the media, responded to some of the criticism surrounding Treylon Burks' effort.
Attitudes, great. Effort's been good. One of the things that somebody said something about his effort in practice the other day. The one thing I would mention that a lot of those guys come straight from special teams and they're running like 100 yards up and down the field. And when they get to my period, my individual period, we have only 8 minutes. So what I tell them to do is they can tone it down a little bit, go through the route technique part of it, not so much speed, because after 8 minutes, we go back full speed with the routes on there with the quarterbacks. So some of that, I give him a little leeway because especially like on the kickoff team or punt team as a gunner, he's taking more reps, probably twice as many reps as rookies are. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of a break when it gets to my particular area. As far as running full speed technique, I won't waver on that. But as far as going full speed in my drills, I don't have them do that on some days when they're doing a lot of running on special teams.
Oh, everybody heard that and said, ah, ha, ha. See, the coach, he said there was nothing wrong with it. You guys do know Craig Aukerman said a lot of stuff too, right? That doesn't make it right. Trevor came on the show yesterday and defended his take, and we actually played that Tyke Tolbert cut. And Trevor said, hey, I get the coach standing up for his guy, but that's not what I saw. Again, an expert. Impeccable credentials. So on the A to Z Sports show this morning, Jack Gentry decided after the coach said, oh no, Treylon Burks wasn't dogging it. I told him don't go hard because he's doing special teams. He decided that because it was an opinion he didn't like, it was all about Trevor. Let's demonize the haver of the opinion instead of addressing the opinion.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why we can't judge an opinion off of one video from practice we see, because we don't know what Tolbert said to these guys before on how hard they should be going, what percent they should be giving. So, this is just another level to the Treylon Burks discussion. I feel like because he's such a lightning rod right now, because he was a first-round draft pick, because he's underperformed and hasn't been available as much as he should have been at this point in his career, people are kind of reaching and grasping for straws to try and drag him down through this whole effort illusion. Like, he's not giving full effort. I think it's ridiculous. I think there's plenty of stuff that you can fairly criticize Treylon Burks for doing or not doing. But
yes,
effort in minicamp, after working with a special teams unit, then going straight to receiver work, that's not even close to one of them. People are getting really lazy this offseason. Local media are getting really lazy in how they cover Treylon Burks and how they kind of dissect the Treylon Burks discussion. I wonder if they're just running out of creative ideas to formulate shows around. I wonder if they're just trying to kill a few minutes on the air. I don't know what they're trying to do here, but the Treylon Burks discussion has really turned really, really lazy.
Yes, lazy. Because Trevor Maddich going to OTAs and Trevor Maddich going to minicamp himself. That's lazy? Trevor went to OTAs and minicamp because I asked him to go so that he could break it down for you guys because, again, he's an expert. Now, we know what the reference of, well, I just think because he's so polarizing, it's such a lightning rod that you can, except Trevor Maddich is not Skip Bayless. And the second you start accusing him of being that is the second that I turn it back on you. This has nothing to do with Trevor. Again, a guy who came on the show, when he came on our show last Tuesday, the first thing he talked about was how good the defense was. Get excited about the defense, Titans fans. But what happens is you hear the thing you don't like, and now all of a sudden it's Trevor Maddich is lazy. Trevor Maddich's opinion doesn't count. And I'm sorry, but the second you start to do that, I cannot take you seriously. Because what happens is when he praises the Titans defense, he praises Dylan Radunz, he praises the drills and the coaching of Bill Callahan. Nobody apparently seems to hear that. They only hear that Trevor criticized Treylon Burks. So Trevor gave you his full report on the program. A lot of good. Burks was dogging it. And instead of, hey, maybe this expert with impeccable credentials, who is completely unbiased and well-respected, is right. And maybe Treylon Burks does need to keep his focus up. No. It's that bad Trevor Maddich, that lazy Trevor Maddich. I tell you, Trevor Maddich is a lot of things, guys. He ain't lazy. Next time, call me up next time they put Jack Gentry on SportsCenter to go over film breakdowns from 6 different teams in 4 different conferences. Because that's what Trevor does during the fall. And guess what? He still watches the Titans, and he still comes on our show, and he still breaks it down, and he still knows it better than almost all of you. But he's the one that's lazy. And I'm sorry, we cannot look at what the wide receiver coach said and say, oh, well, the wide receiver coach said it, so it must be true. I mean, we often talk about things that the general manager of the team says when he goes up in front of a microphone that are laughable. Oh, yes, the assistant coach said. So, again, when someone who wasn't at OTAs or minicamp, in this case, the guy on A to Z Sports, who, again, is criticizing the guy who was there, who is the definition of an expert, and is saying he's lazy because of an observation that he doesn't like. That's what this is about. If Trevor said Treylon Burks looked outstanding, he looks like this is about to be a Pro Bowl season for him, I guarantee you they wouldn't call him lazy. But because it's an observation that's negative, and thus the pom-pom waving fanboys don't like it, now we have to criticize Trevor. And so it doesn't tell me, when you get up there and you say things like that, it doesn't tell me anything about Burks. It tells me everything about you. I can go to the 300 level of Nissan Stadium and find anybody that can get on a show and say the team is always right, all the players are good, this team is headed to the Super Bowl, all the draft picks were great. I can find anybody who can do that. I can't just go find a Trevor Maddich with the resume that he has. We're lucky that we have Trevor on this show. And it's not like Trevor can't handle the criticism himself. He went on the midday show today, and he and Derek got into it. But I just think it's embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing that the majority of Titans local chatter is all sunshine, all lollipops. It is a lack of challenging. To me, it is just, oh, everything's great all the time. Well, the coach said, yeah, I know. It's like Chad Withrow always says, as soon as John Robinson got fired, the in J-Rob we trust guys became let Rand cook. Again, I can find any fanboy to go to the pro shop and buy a pair of pom-poms and sit up there and say, go team, go. So just because your disdain for someone you don't know, for an observation of something you didn't see, from somebody who has far better credentials, a far better resume than the YouTube show guys, doesn't really tell me about Trevor. It doesn't really tell me about Burks. It doesn't really tell me about the reality of what's going on with the Titans or what this season may look like. No, it tells me about you. And it tells me that I don't need to listen to what you say, because whatever you say is just going to be parroted from whatever it is that the team wants people to believe. So I don't need to watch that guy anymore. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program. And there's another thing that just boggles my mind. In the Trevor Maddich goes out to practice, sees what he sees, comes on the show, says what he sees, and everybody gets mad. And I want to get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, 1025-1063 The Game.
What a coach says about a player in public and what he says to a player behind closed doors are often different, and the coach often has different reasons for that. And so I am in no way being critical of the coach. I wasn't talking about his physical effort on full speed reps. I talked to you, Jared, repeatedly about you don't always go full speed physically, but you must always be at full focus mentally. They drafted, the Titans did, a rookie, Jaquan Jackson, right?
From Tulane, yep.
He did, yeah, and I watched him in that same practice be incredibly deliberate in watching with his eyes the ball hit his hands and then watch with his eyes as he tucked it away to secure it. I wasn't talking about his physical effort. I was talking about his mental focus as was manifest by his physical actions going through these drills. And so that's what I was upset about. I absolutely stand by it. I'm happy to talk to the assistant coach, head coach, player, former player. I'm happy to talk about that because I have seen way too many players that practice in such a way that they guarantee they will not be able to get the most out of their ability.
You're the man, Trevor. That was Trevor yesterday on the program. I mean, Ian, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
We've known Trevor for what, 10 years?
Yeah, I started calling Trevor when I was an intern here in 2014, 2015 when he was on Sports Night with them.
So that would be 10 years.
Just about 10 years almost, yeah.
Goodness gracious. You weren't here last week. You were out. You obviously weren't at the mini camp.
Mm-mm.
You have any doubt that Trevor saw what he saw?
No.
I mean, Trevor's not making stuff up, guys. But the amount of people, and this is something I don't understand. It almost shocks me because as much as I know everybody wants affirmation, everybody wants to believe, everybody wants to get excited that their team can win, nobody likes to hear, yeah, Vegas thinks you're going to win 5 games this year, everybody thinks you suck. Nobody likes to hear that. I don't even like to hear that, and I'm down on the Titans right now. Why is everybody, both in the media and the fans, why is everybody rushing to the defense of a guy who caught 16 passes last year? It's like, man, people are getting on Burks, and that's not fair. Is it really not fair? He caught 16 passes last year. And you may believe in Burks, but the Titans don't believe in Burks. They don't believe in him at all. If they believed in him, they wouldn't have spent $30 million replacing him, while at the same time hoping that Malik Neighbors would fall to them with the 7th pick. Then they signed Tyler Boyd, and it was like, oh, they definitely don't care about Burks, and that's what most people thought. But then Brian Callahan comes out, he gets up there and says, oh, no, we do care about Burks. There is a role for Burks, and the entire fan base has decided, oh, they love him, he's doing great, and anything that anybody says that's negative must be bullcrap. That's embarrassing. Also, let's not kid ourselves. You all know there's a reason why Treylon Burks hasn't been good, right? That, like, in his NFL career, he has underachieved. Forget about the A.J. Brown stuff. The fact that he was basically acquired to replace A.J. Brown. Because that is a lot of pressure that's not fair to put on somebody. He caught 16 passes last year. That's awful. Chig caught 50-something passes, and he sucks too. And I'm sure some of it's injury, and I get it. But maybe some of it, just hear me out on this, is that he doesn't have that dog inside of him. Like Jadeveon Clowney didn't have that dog in him, and you guys don't like him. Mariota didn't have that dog inside of him. And it was like, well, Marcus is a good guy, but you know. But say Burks doesn't have it. And it's like, that lazy Treylon Burks, blah, 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 blah. You'll say that if it ends up not happening. And I just can't, I can't get over the amount of people that are just rushing to the defense of something they didn't see. And that's what gets me the most about this. All right, we got a boatload of phones on this. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com if you want to weigh in here on the program. Steven says, I got to ask, what was your observation of Burke's focus and work ethic? I was standing next to Trevor, and Trevor was basically, as Burks was not rounding. I mean, Burks was home run trotting. Like, he wasn't running out the ground ball. And I heard Trevor basically, it was like, ugh, watching Burks do the drill. I know what Trevor saw. Now, was I watching it as closely as Trevor? No. But I was there. And I did see Trevor's disgust, and I did watch Treylon Burks. And I did see Treylon Burks. Now, look, maybe he was told, go 75% speed. But he definitely was in a home run trot. Like, there's no doubt that he was not going and giving his all. Which, again, the coach said, I want him 75%. Trevor's thing is he's not mentally finishing the drill. The techniques and the things like that and the practice and everything else. One texter says, Trevor's observation was explanatory. He came to the Titans out of shape, and that's low effort from day one. You see Burks playing poorly in the games repeatedly. For a first-round draft choice with such promise, it makes sense that he could have an attitude or mental block that stops him from being what he could be. See, here's the thing about the idea of Treylon Burks, wanting it, or Treylon Burks working hard, or Treylon Burks answering the bell. Sometimes these things are very simple. Some guys are just lazy. Some guys don't give a rat's ass. Some guys, Aaron Rodgers is on vacation right now while the Jets have mandatory minicamp. Why? Because Aaron thinks he's bigger than the team. That's why. That's obvious. But when it comes to Burks checks a lot of the boxes in terms of what we want to see from these guys in terms of their participation and those kind of things. But there's just some guys, and this goes back to the dog inside of them. There's just some guys out there that just don't want it enough. That just don't want it enough. That just can't keep their focus 100% of the time. I think Albert Haynesworth is an example of that, where Albert Haynesworth was a good player. But if Albert really wanted it his entire career, Albert could have a gold jacket right now. But he didn't want it that bad. But then when it got close to making that money, Albert did want it, and Albert performed. And if you remember, he signed that massive contract with Washington, and then they fired their coach and hired Mike Shanahan, who wanted to go from the 4-3 to the 3-4. And they wanted Albert to play nose tackle. Albert didn't want to play nose tackle. Mike Shanahan told Albert, hey, we'll release you right now, and you can go to another team that runs the 4-3, that won't ask you to be a nose tackle, but you got to waive all the guaranteed money owed to you. And Albert said, no, I'm not doing that. And so, I'm sorry. When it comes to Burks and the fact that he hasn't made it in the NFL, some of it is injury that's beyond his control. Getting decapitated at Philadelphia, that's not his fault. But he had 16 catches last year. It's hard for me to get over that. One texter says, I have personally seen Malik Willis mailing it in almost every practice I've been to, the same way he accused Burks of doing it. Trevor never called for him to be cut immediately. This is not about Trevor's observation. His take is valid about his performance. His take is comically overblown when you take into account his proposed action and response. You are completely missing the point. Come on. Comes from Steve. I will say this. I have never seen Malik mailing it in. Now, Malik might not be very good, but I have never seen Malik mail it in. So I can't sit there and say when the texter says, oh, Malik was mailing it in, I can't get there. Because I've never seen Malik mail it in. And so that one I have a hard time with. Because it's like, okay, well, now we're throwing Malik under the bus for something that has nothing to do with Malik, and I can't even co-sign on what you're saying about Malik. As far as the idea of Trevor saying he'd cut the guy, I don't have a problem with that. Because again, some people are like, well, I mean, Trevor said he would cut him. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. Because let me get to this on the other side. Because I actually brought this up last week. Because I don't doubt that what Trevor said happened. Again, I was standing there and I watched Trevor's disgust as he was watching Burks run the drill. Ian said he's known Trevor for 10 years. He doesn't think Trevor made that up. And there was something I said last week when this all blew up that now I think I have my answer, and I'm not sure I totally like it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025. Purchase your tickets now for the Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway Friday, September 13th through Sunday, September 15th at musiccitygp.com. We have a promo code for you. Use promo code GAME. It's pretty simple. For a 20% discount from now through June 16th.
As far as Traylon's role, he's going to play everything. We've told him that from the beginning. He's going to play inside, he's going to play outside, and he's going to carve out a role for himself. And I had him come up today and do the break after practice because his work that he's put in has been really impressive. Just to give you guys some context, Tuesdays are our harder days of our 4-day work week. It's a really heavy day, and so the load on the players is high. And what I mean by that is both acceleration, max speeds, and yardage. And so Treylon, I think, ran 3,591 yards on Tuesday, and then hit our top speed and team-leading top speed at 22.6 miles an hour in practice. So super impressive workload and performance. And so he's had a really good offseason. I'm excited about what he can bring for us. I meant when I said that the other day that I think he's going to have a role to play.
That was Brian Callahan, who can't even pronounce Treylon Burks' name correctly, telling you about how great Treylon Burks is. And so a lot of people are mad about Trevor last week, saying after watching Burks at minicamp, he cut him. And, that Trevor's getting called lazy because the coach came out and said, oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. And Trevor today was asked about the whole, you said you'd cut him. Do you actually buy that? And he's like, yeah. And here's why. The old man used to have a saying, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. This time last week, or whenever it was that the Trevor take blew up, I said, look, every play of every practice is videotaped, categorized, and logged. And right now, if you walked into Brian Callahan's office and you said, can you pull up Jamarco Jones' practice rep from training camp 2 years ago, I bet you it would take him 5 minutes and he could pull up Jamarco Jones' practice reps. Because it's all logged, there's all it's all a shared file kind of thing, whatever. And I said, when Brian Callahan watches the tape of practice and sees what Trevor saw, when Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach, watches the tape of what Trevor saw, when Nick Holtz, the offensive coordinator, when he watches the tape of what Trevor saw, are those guys going to watch it and say, who cares, not that big of a deal? Or are they going to watch it and they're going to say, okay, we need to address this? Well, I think I got my answer. When Tyke Tolbert gets in front of everybody and says, I told these guys to go 75%. I think I got my answer. And so that does worry me because what I do, accountability is so important if you're going to be successful in any organization. And so to go 75%, that's fine. If you're told to go 75% to save your legs, that's fine. But what I can't have is I can't have the coach getting up in front of everybody and saying, he's working so hard, he's doing this, he's doing that, he's so great. Look at how much he ran in practice and then say, but it's okay for him not to go harder than that. That I don't necessarily like. And I do wonder, with the constant positivity we've talked about around the Titans, I do wonder, are they really getting up in people when things aren't right? Now, I am convinced Bill Callahan is. That I don't worry about it. But everything else, who knows? One texter says, how do you consider Trevor an expert? He was mostly a long snapper with 23 games started. Well, again, of those 23 games that he started, he played left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. Started at every single position in the NFL. And was in the league for 12 years. And also played tight end. And was also on a team that went to the Super Bowl. And was also a first-round draft choice. And after he retired, he was an analyst for CBS. There's a game, Tom Brady's first year. They played at Atlanta. Brady threw this pass that got batted in the air and it fell into the arms of another receiver who ran into the end zone with it for a touchdown. And Craig Bolerjack and Trevor Maddich called the game on CBS. Then after CBS, he went to ESPN, where he is one of their top football analysts. I think that defines expert. I could be wrong, but I think that defines expert. And that's why we're glad we have him on the show. One texter says, I understand Trevor's take, and I've not seen much proof from Burks to believe that he has that dog mentality that Chris Sanders always talks about. Mike from Shelbyville has a winning tweet or text. Mike says, Titans fans complain, where's the national media all the time? One national analyst who lives here comes to practice, analyzes practice, and the fans go, not like that. No. We want the good analysis. We don't want the bad analysis. It's like, man, don't you want to know the truth about the team? Don't you want to talk about the team, like the truth about the team? Or do you just want to hear I think they'll win every game this year? I mean, I was listening to SiriusXM NFL Radio yesterday, and they were doing their two-a-days, and they were talking about whether or not the Titans were going to get over under I think it's 6.5 is the win total. They were talking about whether or not they're going to get over, under, and Kirk Morrison said that they were going to get over, and then he was trying to find 7 games to pick they could win, And it was like, well, I mean, a lot of things are going to have to go right for them to get to 7 wins. I'm like, oh, God. Oof. One texter says, maybe Burks was saving his energy for a position he's actually going to play this year. Gunner. This reminds me of a story from about 5 years ago. The Titans were playing the Texans. I don't know if you guys remember this, but in the 2019 season, the Titans started 2-4. They were awful, and they made the switch to Tannehill, and they won a game, and then I think they won a couple games, and they lost a game, then they won a game, and then they got hot. And once they got hot, they got back into the division race, and they were playing a game at the beginning of December, or like December 10th or something. And I said, and that game basically was for the division. It was at home, and the Titans lost because Anthony Ferkser dropped the ball that was basically returned for a touchdown, and the Titans ended up losing. And I think there was another Furkakta play that happened in that Texans game. I can't remember. But the Titans are driving before the end of the first half, and they have all 3 timeouts. And A.J. Brown, from where I'm sitting in my seats, A.J. Brown calls for a blow. And so A.J. comes off the field, and Khalif Raymond goes on. And I'm watching the game, and I'm thinking, well, okay, Vrabel should call timeout right here because obviously AJ's tired. It's the 2-minute drill. You have all 3 timeouts. Why not take the timeout, let AJ catch his breath, and then run a play for AJ Brown? I mean, Ian, that makes sense, right?
Sure.
I mean, hey, AJ's tired, timeout. All right, let's get AJ some. All right, AJ, you ready? All right, let's go. I told Floyd that. Floyd looked at me and was like, call timeout? I was like, well, I mean, I'd rather have AJ on the field than Khalif Raymond. He goes, get your fat ass in shape. And I'm like, okay. So when it comes to the idea of like, well, Burks was saving his energy and he was we can't have it both ways, right? We can't have it where it's like, well, oh no, he's got a role and he's running the most of anybody and he's running the fastest of anybody and he's the hardest worker we have and he's the best. He's saving his energy for special teams. Can't have it both ways. I mean, it's just, oof. One texter says, I'm so fired up to call in and defend Trevor, but I promised my wife I wouldn't call on vacation. That comes from Kyle in Shelbyville.
Good idea, Kyle. Yeah, good idea.
Probably a good idea there, Kyle. Kyle's a good man on that one. I mean, hey, I do love the fact that this is my favorite part of all this is that, when you say things people don't like on the radio, what they do is they normally try to marginalize you. Act like, who cares about that? That guy's not important. Who cares? That's not this. That's not. It is hilarious that with this, it's like, yeah, everybody heard it. It's like, yeah, everybody heard it. Jason in Manchester says, the only reason as a Titans fan I'm upset with Trevor's opinion is that it might devalue Burks' trade value. So I've thought about that. I've talked about Burks and making this team and everything else, and I'm thinking about how the coaches have just been overly positive in their praise of Burks all the time. Callahan, Holtz, Tolbert, everybody. And I do wonder if if they were to come out and say, yeah, he needs to start working harder, I'm not sure that would go over well if you're trying to say, yeah, we'll take a 4th next year for him. I'm not sure that would go over very well. And I have thought about that. If it's like they saw the same thing on tape that Trevor saw, and they're like, oh, God. Well, we'll wait till training camp. Somebody have an injury. We'll trade Burks and get an offensive lineman, or we'll do, something like that. Speaking of which, the Titans signed a lineman today who I think is probably going to end up starting. But that's a different discussion for later in the show. All right, 615-737-1025. The man who's always got something positive to say. And we love him. Chris Sanders joins us next on the program. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It's a hot day out here, boy, I tell you. And people say that nothing gets exciting during the summer. So again, Trevor criticized Traylon Burks last week. Everybody got mad. Everybody. And then Trevor came on the show yesterday.
Then my perspective, neck out for a play when. So, it's just kind of tough to evaluate now, right, as opposed to the meeting. As I just think it's a little different because
Traylon Burks has a contract for the next aid during training camp of Burks. Somebody has some receivers go down, and they have an extra offensive lineman maybe. And, we saw the Titans get Dennis Kelly for Dorial Green Beckham. So anything is possible.
Right.
So let me ask you this. Don't you think there's a chance the Titans could be pumping Traylon Burks' tires up and not saying anything bad at all because deep down inside they want to trade him?
I don't know if they're doing it because of that. I just think that, this is just my opinion, I think that these coaches see some ability in this kid. In the first round, if you don't think he can play. And then on the flip side about it is, potential is a bad word. All it is hidden ability. We need to see what we drafted. And I think that, we can't – I know the last 2 years have been kind of tough for this kid. I think sometimes we just got to – we got to lay off him a little bit, let him play and let the chips fall. Now, if there's a situation to where, a couple of linemen go down and you need some linemen to come in and have some depth and teams are asking for Traylon Burks, then I think you might have to pull the trigger because you got to get some offensive line. But if I'm a receiver coach, I'm going to make sure I do everything in my power to make sure that he's right. And if he comes in there, he doesn't do the right thing, then I got to let him go because why? He's not going to be a part of this team.
Chris Sanders is with us on the program. Tavondre Sweat, once again, not active for practice. So he makes it through one OTA.
Oh, my God.
One OTA practice that none of us saw, and then he doesn't practice again for 5 weeks. Chris?
Yes.
Are you worried?
I'm concerned. I mean, I really am concerned. And I say this in a respectful way, but, you got to understand he's been missing valuable reps. I understand you're riding a bike. I understand you're getting ice. I understand you're getting stem, but you're missing valuable reps. But here's the thing is, he's expected to play this year. I mean, he's expected to come in and make an impact. And if you're not on the field, you're not getting reps. You're not doing what I'm not saying he's not doing what he's supposed to. If he's not getting those reps, then it's going to really hurt him because you got to understand when camp starts, there's not a lot of practices. You got to come in, you got to play right away. And the defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, is expecting him to do things. And you can't expect him to do things if he's not available. You can be the greatest player, the greatest wide receiver, the greatest lineman, the greatest quarterback. But if you're not available to be in practice, you're missing valuable reps. Because if this is a veteran that's been dominating in the league for 5 and 6 years, I can understand. I'll be like, okay, make sure you rest, make sure he gets there. But Jared, he's a rookie. When you're a rookie, you're still trying to get the speed of the game. You're still trying to understand the concept, the techniques that your coach is teaching you. So he's really missing valuable time.
Chris Sanders, you are the offensive line coach.
Yes.
And your job is riding on the offensive line this year. Nicholas Petit-Frere has not practiced in any of the open OTAs or mini.
I think you start thinking about plan B because if you look at PT, he's missed a lot of time. Last year he was out. The year before he was hurt, things like that. So you're basically still in rookie. I mean, you got to pick up the technique. I know, Coach Callahan is a great offensive coach, but at the end of the day, you're missing valuable reps. You're missing the speed of the game. You're still basically a rookie because you haven't had that much experience. So in my opinion, I'm not counting him out because I'm never going to count a kid out. But I think you start looking at plan B. Why? Because he's not out there. He's not getting reps. He's not doing, what the team needs him to do. So, we'll see what happens when camp comes around. But at the end of the day, if he's not available, I hate to agree with you, Jared, but I think you got to start thinking about plan B and getting somebody else in there.
Today, the Titans reportedly signed Jerron Christian, a tackle from Louisville.
The Ohio State? Oh,
no. We already got a tackle over here from Ohio State. That's the problem. So they get a tackle from Louisville and Jerron Christian. Jerron Christian was drafted by the Washington, then Redskins, was drafted when Bill Callahan was the line coach.
Okay.
And has played in 58 games, 25 starts. Last year made 9 starts at left tackle for the Cleveland Browns. When they went through all the different tackles they had. They signed him today. He is a left side of the line player. He's got 1,000 snaps at left tackle.
Yeah.
He's got, I think, like 80 snaps at right tackle. What do you make of this? Bill Callahan bringing in a Bill Callahan guy who is a tackle but has left tackle a left tackle background as opposed to a right tackle background. What do you make of this? A depth signing?
You know that
right tackle? What do we think?
Ooh. You know, it's funny because you said Plan B, maybe, and I'm not saying that they're doing this. Maybe they're thinking about Plan B. I mean, because if PT is not available or is not, you're doing up to his capability. But I mean, the thing about it is, Bill Callahan knows this kid. He understands what he can do, and they're not just going to sign him if he's just a guy. I mean, he's going to come in and get some depth, and I think that's a security blanket that if PT is not there, Petit Ferrer. So I think it's a good signing because now you have some depth and you have a security blanket to that if PT's not there, you have a backup plan, just like you said, Plan B.
Do you think this could have been something that they were kicking around, this idea, and then now that the mini camp, now that the offseason's over, it's like, okay, we wanted to see what these guys could do. Let's go get him just to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you just said the key word, to make sure. I mean, you can't go into camp not having, some good backup and some guys to back up some of these guys. But at the end of the day, if a lot of guys aren't available to practice or available to be out there, I mean, you have to go out and get somebody that can come in and play right away. You don't want to just go get a rookie or go get somebody that's kind of inexperienced. You want to get somebody that you know. And I think with Coach Callahan, I think he knows this kid. And I think he can come in and play right away if PT's not there. So you said it a minute ago, that if the Tennessee Titans are having a Plan B, Jared, we just got our answer. I think that's a Plan B.
Bingo. Chris Sanders with us. Last one for you, Chris.
Yes.
Do you feel bad about the fact that we laughed ad nauseum last week when we read the Jim Wyatt report of Will Levis throwing the ball in the lake, and then
I want to fight you, man.
And then the Titans went back and added content that the ball bounced in the lake because they didn't want us to think that he just fired the ball into the lake. Do you feel bad about that at all? And let me answer my side of this. I do not.
Jared, I'm going to fight you, man. You had me thinking he was at the 50-yard line throwing it in the
How am
water.
I supposed to know? I read
Get
mad at Jim Wyatt. I read what Jim Wyatt wrote.
Jared, I'm going to fight you because you had me thinking that he was at the 50-yard line. He threw it in. He was in the red zone at the 8-yard line. He was at the 8-yard line,
How many snaps have you taken on that practice field in the red zone?
A lot.
How many times have you seen a guy throw a ball in the lake?
Stupid, man.
Chris Sanders, he is the best. Chris, take care of yourself. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you. Love you, brother.
Love
Bye-bye.
you too. Take care. Chris Sanders joining us as always on the program. I mean, people are mad at me. Like, I read what they wrote, and then they changed what they wrote. Don't be mad at me. He was in the red zone. Yeah? You ever seen somebody throw in the red zone? No? Okay. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. So the Titans are going to have joint practices with Seattle. And I love joint practice because training camp, at that point, we've been covering it for 2 or 3 weeks, and it kind of gets boring, and it's like, okay, fine, let's do. But there is something that I beg of the Titans, that I might be the only person in America who thinks they should do this. And to me, I think it's a common sense. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studio. So the Titans have made it official. 3 o'clock is the day that they usually send out the emails about their transactions. They have made it official that they have signed, I think it's Jaron Christian. I mean, I remember when his brother was at Louisville, played tight end. He was at Louisville after I left Louisville. He was a tackle. Jaron Christian. And let me just say this. They signed him today, and I saw the reports, and I immediately texted some people at Louisville, and I was like, hey, what's the deal? What's his? And they say, he's a good kid. He was a good kid and a solid player when he was here. And again, his brother Gerald Christian was a tight end, and then he came in after I left, but he was a starting tackle at Louisville for 3 years, went in the 3rd round to the then Washington Redskins, where he was drafted by the guru, Bill Callahan. And they played a little bit in Washington, and he's made 25 starts, and he's bounced around the league, and he's all these things. Last year, he played in 9 games for the Browns and made 9 starts. He was out there as a free agent, and today was signed by the Titans. And immediately, my head started to go into overdrive as to what does this mean? Now, I have told you time and time again that the Tennessee Titans do not have a right tackle. No matter how many times you text into the text line and say, Nicholas Petit Ferrer, a.k.a.
PT.
No matter how many times you say that PT can do it, I'm not convinced of it. And PT was not getting out there on the field, at least not in OTAs and minicamp. So they signed Jaron Christian. And as I do with all these things, I go to Pro Football Focus because I'm not going to go watch Cleveland Browns tape to sit there and tell you what I think of this guy because, there's only so many hours in a day. So I went to Pro Football Focus, and his numbers aren't very good. But here was what got me. The snap counts. Jaron Christian, in his career, again, started in 2018, has played 1,682 snaps at left tackle. So that's 1,600 snaps. Really 1,700 snaps at left tackle. 0 at left guard, 0 at center, 0 at right guard, and 125 snaps at right tackle. 1,700 at left tackle, 125 at right tackle. They can't be bringing him in here to play right tackle, can they? If the guy's got 125 snaps at right tackle, 80 of which came his second year in the league in 2019. So I think now, one of 3 things has happened. The most likely thing, the most likely reason for this signing is that they look at him as the backup left tackle, which tells you what they really think of Jalen Duncan, which is that Jalen Duncan stinks. And I already know Jalen Duncan stinks. I watched Jalen Duncan play last year. I know that Jalen Duncan allowed the most sacks in the Big Ten his final year at Maryland. He's not good. He was taken in the 6th round. There was hope for him. Vrabel and crew burned his red shirt and probably ruined him. So he to me is not an option. And if something were to happen to J.C. Latham, that I would want to put Jalen Duncan in at left tackle. So that's the first thing. I think this might just be a depth signing, that this guy is going to back up Latham. The second thing would be that they may actually play him at right tackle. Again, for the 3 years that Bill Callahan was the offensive line coach of the Commanders, that Jaron Christian was there, he played 8 snaps at right tackle, 80 snaps at right tackle, and 80 snaps at right tackle. So he played 88 of his 125 under Bill Callahan. And then Bill Callahan left, and he started playing left tackle. In fact, he only played 34 snaps one year and 53 snaps. So that's about, 87? So under Bill Callahan in 2018 and 2019, he played 87 left tackle snaps, 88 right tackle snaps. So maybe they are bringing in Jaron Christian because I was right all along and PT stinks and Duncan stinks. And they were like, you know what, go sign a right tackle because we don't have a right tackle. So that's the second thing that's possible. The third thing that is possible here is that the Titans are looking at J.C. Latham and saying, maybe we need to move him back to right tackle. They said if it doesn't work out, they'd move him back to right tackle. And I have no idea if it's worked out or hasn't worked out. I don't even know if they have practiced enough or with the kind of velocity and the kind of physicality that you would need to practice to be able to judge whether or not J.C. Latham can make the transition. The one thing I would say, though, is his athleticism, they can figure that out without wearing pads. And his technique in terms of footwork, they can also figure that out without the pads. But there is no doubt, just looking at the body of work that Jaron Christian has, that he is a left tackle. 1,700 snaps at left tackle, 125, more than half of which came with Bill Callahan as his coach, though he did not play a snap at right tackle last year. I do believe for the Browns, they had Jack Conklin as their starting right tackle, and when Conklin got hurt early in the year, they went to their third-round rookie, DeJuan Jones, the big fat guy out of Ohio State. He was kind of like the Tavondre Sweat of the offensive line. He weighed in at the combine and then refused to weigh in on pro day, which is not a good sign. If a guy refuses to weigh in on pro day after weighing in on the combine, it means they're either too skinny and they've lost the weight back that they added just for the weigh-in, or it means they're too fat and they added the weight back that they lost in order to hop on the scale at the combine. So when we talk about the difference between a right tackle body and a left tackle body, DeJuan Jones is absolutely a right tackle. So they had DeJuan Jones at right tackle. They brought in Jaron Christian. He played left tackle. Maybe Bill Callahan is saying, hey, the best opportunity this team has to succeed would be with playing a guy I know can play left tackle because he played 9 games for me last year, and moving J.C. Latham back to right tackle. I'm not saying they're doing it. Do not come out and say Jared said, because Jared did not say. I'm just saying that it is not an accident that after the offseason program is over, after the Titans vowed that we were going to give Nicholas Petit-Frere an opportunity, we were going to give Jalen Duncan an opportunity, that the Titans, the day that that's over, sign a tackle. But I do have to put the asterisk in there that he is not traditionally, looking at his snap counts in his career, he's not a right tackle. He's a left tackle. And then I wonder, okay, is he just there to be the backup to J.C. Latham? Because I would argue that you do need a backup for J.C. Latham in case Latham gets hurt, knock on wood, and the Titans have made it known that it ain't going to be Skoronski, even though he might be the best left tackle on the team. Or is he here to play left tackle and thus Latham gets moved over to right tackle? Which a lot of you wouldn't like, but I'm not against. If that's what ends up happening, I am not against it. I will get mad at them for saying that he was a left tackle when they took him, but I mean, again, now the PFF grades for Jaron Christian are not good, but they're still better than anything that Duncan and Nicholas Petit-Frere put up last year, so you got to give them credit there. But I don't think this is a minor move. You know, a lot of times the Titans will make moves at 3 o'clock, and everybody who covers the team will put it out there, you know, on social media. The Titans have signed inside linebacker Johnny Joseph, and they have released outside linebacker Jackie Johnson. I mean, who cares? These guys are going to end up being practice squad players or get cut anyways. I do not feel that way about this move. I mean, this is a real transaction. Because, again, this guy at least has started some games. Duncan is terrible. PT is terrible. Leroy Watson has played 7 NFL games in his career with 0 starts. This guy's been in the NFL for 5 years. This guy went to an absolutely fabulous college. And he started 25 games. And he's played for Bill Callahan and started 9 games for Bill Callahan last year. So this is not a minor move in my opinion. And this is a move that I like very much, even though I have no idea if the player's good. Because At least people have thought enough about this guy to start him in different spots in the NFL, which I can't say about some of the other guys that are on this team. I do find it at least a minor bit disconcerting. Not that well, if Bill Callahan wasn't coaching him, I would think that this would be a 5-alarm fire. But because Bill's coaching him, it's not that. I can live with this. The best left tackle on their team might be their left guard. Like, their left guard's best position might be left tackle. Their best right tackle might be their left tackle. This guy may be a left tackle that they play at right tackle. Again, I think this guy's going to start. Radunz, I don't even know what position he is. So outside of the center, the left tackle's a right tackle. The left guard is a left tackle. The center's a center. The right guard might be Sadiq Charles, who is a guard. Might be Brunskill, who's a do-it-all everything. Might be Radunz, who knows what position he is. And the right tackle is a left tackle. Seems a little odd there. But again, I like the signing, and I do not think that this is a minor signing. I think this guy's going to play.